Welcome back, guys. It's been a while since I've been able to give you an update, but first things first, I guess one of my buddies did a little bit of a deal where he bought a three-wheeler and the guy was cleaning out his garage and threw in this sprint car tail tank, so he decided to drop it off here and maybe put it to some use, so I'll have to get that off and out of the way, but who knows, maybe that'll be useful for a project later on someday. But I'm going to get that off of there, and then my engine is actually done and ready to go. I'm still waiting on parts. I need to get I think my crank bearings are still coming, and then I need a bearing for the primary clutch, and a few other things. So once we get those parts, then we'll get the engine back together. So for now, we're just going to work on the actual sled itself today. But I'm going to get this sprint car tank off of here, and then I'll be back with you guys. So this is actually the first time I've had this sled turned over, and I was just kind of looking it over. First thing I looked at were the bogey wheels. They're definitely old. Most of them are cracking a little bit. So if I can get the motor running good, and the rest of it seems to work, probably bogey wheels are going to be pretty soon in the future. The front drive sprockets are good enough. This one right here is busting up pretty bad, but those are just plastic sprockets. So like I said, I want to make sure I'm going to get it running good and whatnot first, and then if it is, we'll go from there. The track is not in the greatest shape either, but I think it'll be usable. It's got some pretty bad weather cracking, so we'll see how long it holds together, but I'm not expecting too much. Thankfully, I can get the bogey wheels pretty cheap, and if I can get the screws out of here, which that may be a whole nother story, but if I can get them out of there, at least drilled out of there, I should be able to reuse the mounting plates for them. Everything else looks like it's in pretty decent straight shape, just rusted. Probably needs to be all sanded down and repainted at some point. But I'll have to work the track tension screws and all that. We'll have to work that loose so we can get that cleaned up. Moving towards the front of the sled, the fuel tank basically is this unit right here. That's obviously seen a few rocks or something in its day. It's pretty smashed up. I guess someday my plan is to cut the seams of it here and pull this whole bottom panel off, and then I'll dig into the inside of the tank there and get it all cleaned out, because I'm sure it's all full of rust and varnish and all that, and then maybe we'll see if I can't pound some of them dents back out of it. Moving up to the skis, that other one's not so bad. This one's got a lot of breaks in it where it's just plain got thin and rusted away. Once again, I'm just gonna try and get it running and driving first, and then if it seems like everything there is going to be working all right, then maybe I'll dig into some of the rest of this, or I might just put a bead of weld here just to hold it together for now. This drawing board here is a little dented up, so it's not in perfect shape, but I guess I wasn't really expecting it to be either. Here's a pretty good example of how that track is weather cracked. These actually go in pretty deep, so like I said, we'll get it running and see if it holds up. It's obviously looking at probably more of an intensive project than I was hoping for, but that's usually how these things go. So I haven't decided yet if I'll want to spend the money and redo the whole thing, but since I'm putting some money into the motor, I might as well. But we'll see how expensive it's going to get, and maybe spread it out over a couple of years and make it more of a long-term project. Pop the cover off there on the final drive, chain drive area, and obviously this chain's been sitting and getting a little rusty. There's definitely been some moisture in there, so we'll probably have to get down in there and make sure that bearing's all right down in the bottom. But as far as the chain itself, it looks like it's not frozen. There's not any links that are stuck. So that'll be nice. The rubber plug that goes on the end of this, that caps this off, has been rubbing against that stud, and it's cracked through. I don't know if it's leaking, but that may be something we'll have to look into in the future too, so we don't keep some of that moisture out of there. The secondary clutch, the rust is obviously going to be an issue, and it also seems to be a bit weak. I've never really worked with these before, but that seems like it's pretty weak for a secondary clutch spring, so that spring may also need to be replaced. I mean, it doesn't even bring the plate back, so I don't know if it needs to be replaced or if it just everything just needs to be cleaned up and lubricated, but that'll have to come off and come apart. I'm not exactly sure how to go about that. I would assume that nut comes off there and the clutch assembly comes off, but I'll have to look into parts schematics to see how that all comes apart. Just spent a little bit more time looking the sled over, and I noticed we got a bent tie rod down here, and it hits against that chain case mount right there. So that'll be something we'll have to look into as well. Right now I'm kind of tossing around the idea of where I'm headed in the future with this project. I think what we're going to do for now is I'm going to get the motor back and drop it on, get it running, and we'll just see if the thing moves and drives the way it is. And if it does, then we'll probably just leave her at that for this winter. And then maybe this summer, if I got time, or next winter, I'll tear the whole thing apart and clean up all the pieces, even like the motor mounts. We'll get the motor mounts cleaned up and painted, and take everything completely apart. If it doesn't drive, or if it, if that track comes apart right away, or if the bogey wheels come apart, then I'll just start tearing. I'll start tearing the whole thing apart, basically stripping it down to nothing left, and we'll clean everything up and kind of assess it from there and see what's left, see what needs to be replaced, and then replace what needs to be replaced, and paint everything and just reassemble it from scratch. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. I was planning on doing a little bit more work on the sled today, but I think before I go further at all, I need to do some research, and or at least look at the parts schematics a little bit and see how things come apart, and find out if it's something I can do here or if I have to do it at my other location. So that's where I'll leave you guys today. I'll be in Kentucky next week, and then I won't be going through Marshall that weekend, but 2 weeks from now I should have my engine parts back, and by then I'd imagine I'd have the rest of the stuff I'm waiting on. So in a couple weeks here I should be able to get that motor back together, and we'll see if I can get it running and see how that goes. So check back for those updates.